This is the reality of AI personalization at scale. The what, the when, the how, about building scalable personalization systems. So we're going to talk through some of the tools, the methodology, hopefully get you familiar with a little bit more from the AI side of the options you have at your disposal and how to do it. So a little bit about me first. My name is Dan Baird. That's me. This is also me. I'm sorry. But I'm one of the co-founders at Wrench.ai. We built a personalization platform. We structure data. We employ a lot of different types of artificial intelligence. And we, over the past 8-ish years, have developed patented technologies to basically help people optimize the conversions that come from their efforts in marketing and sales at small and large volumes. Kind of the claim to fame is having built a system that is able to package and repackage data so that we can get insights that work at a single person scale, one-to-one, me to you, but also get and package those and get them to work still being data driven at scale, building everything. We'll show you some in a bit, but for personas and even stuff, even just completely devoid of access to any sort of PII or contact information whatsoever. So been there, done that, done it well enough to patent it, and worked with some really big brands in the process. So right now, a lot of people are basically working in the system with a lot of artificial intelligence. They're surrounded by new tools, new notifications, new product updates, new models with weird names, and new phenomenon on what used to work isn't working anymore. Just one example from one of our colleagues and one of our clients that's talking about Google's generative AI. Like all of a sudden, they seem to be coming out with more artificial intelligence in 0-click searches, right? When you go and you type into your phone, instead of actually showing you a list of websites, it seems to actually not show me a list of websites, answer my question, but all of a sudden that's actually hitting and messing with my traffic. And you see here, we're seeing a significant drop in leads, but also simultaneously an increase in conversion rate. What's going on? A big part of what is going on, and like not even just this, by the way, but like remember like seeing the AI powered user experience that everyone told you would see? This is a buyer's journey. No, this is a buyer's journey. They're messy. We're inundated with data. We oftentimes don't feel like we have our feet under us, and things are changing so quickly, it's hard to even catch up. It's hard to even stay relevant, quite frankly, right? People are going, how do we even cope with this? I simultaneously know that if I don't adopt this work in technology, I'm going to be irrelevant, right? It is like do at your own peril type of situation, but it's hard to really even get our feet on the ground. What's causing it? Right? Back in the day, I don't know if you guys seen this little drawing. That is the drawing of the internet. Back in 1969, it fit on a napkin. The ARPA network, it was called at the time. 1973, we started creating more nodes at universities, 45 different kind of nodes. Then all of a sudden the web is born in 1991, and it didn't take long, only 3 more years for the first pop-up to actually show up. One of the phenomenon with software that makes it so different from every other marketplace and manufacturing type of organization is that the incremental cost of new code, an additional unit of production, right? And clothing, that would be like if we're selling shirts, how much does another shirt cost? Well, there's all the products that come into it. In software, it's almost zero. So being able to create advertisements and additional pop-ups, messages, etc., email, the incremental cost of generating the software that produces that is almost zero. And for that reason, most software companies, it seems like the best business model ever. You see a lot of like large margins, SaaS margins, 65 to 85%. These sound fantastic, right? But that also means that one, people can copy your idea at also that zero cost of an additional unit of production. And simultaneously, it means that the growth of new tools is how you stay relevant. So when we're building in the web, the trick is, yes, you have really big margins, but if you don't test, take, and reinvest that information and software into new product, you become irrelevant really, really, really quickly. So over the course of time, there is just an absolute kind of explosion of new products, new technologies, new digital exhaust, if you want to call it that, the signals of it. And that little one napkin eventually just turns into entire nodes of technologies that are just making all types of different information surrounding us. So the interesting kind of thing about that is, one, we're starting to get and develop. Yes, there's a lot of mess. There's an infinite number of tools, technologies, and possibilities out there. But again, how does that help me stay relevant and stay interested and stay relevant in the space, and I give you food. Ratatouille. Let's dig in. I hope you guys can hear the audio. Yummy, right? I love Ratatouille. One of the cooler little media sequences in the universe, and it's one of these things that's obviously not tied to food as much, but people talk about data being the new oil. And oftentimes people misconstrue that, where they say, well, okay, there's all that digital exhaust out there, but just data's valuable. Oil's valuable, data's valuable. Data's the new gold. Those people don't get it. When people say data is the new oil, what they need to understand is, yes, it's a commodity that has an inherent store of value capability with it. Nifty. Oil can be plastic. Oil can be fuel. Oil can be turned into tires. It can be turned into asphalt. It can actually be turned into this just multimodal product that can be reformatted in different ways to become different things that you see and interact with all day, every day. That's why data is really interesting, is it's like the flavors here. If you package and you modify two different flavors of data together, you actually create a brand new phenomenon that people haven't necessarily thought of before. And it actually builds the capability of replicating itself and generating new interest and new value. And that is a big part of what is both happening. And it's also a big part of what every one of you in the audience needs to be doing right now. You need to be building an expertise. You want to get relevant, stay relevant in this kind of new economy, get good at data. And you don't have to get good at all data. You don't have to be a data scientist. I'm absolutely not conveying that. I am not. But there are buckets of data that are relevant to your business, and that data is that oil. So as an example, if you are in graphic design, the oil, the data that is surrounding you, that's a big deal, is probably in user experience. It's clickstream data. It's the object recognition that are in the images, those two little mice in this one. One is pointing its finger, they're holding food, the colors, the background, all of those things are actually data signals that become relevant because they can help you understand, well, what was on the screen when someone clicked. If you're in sales, psychographic and demographic data, CRM data, the stuff that's in your HubSpot or Salesforce instance, that data, when built, combined, or even converted, it becomes your lead scores. It becomes the tools that help you understand, who do we talk to, what do we say, and how should we say it. You need to be paying attention to those. If you're in executive management, you should be looking at the types of data that are available, the multimodal means of processing that data through different software types and turning it into something really meaningful. Because what a lot of people are doing right now, making a lot of really big mistakes with right now, is using the wrong tools to analyze and come to conclusions the wrong way. So if you really want to go, okay, cool, how do I get good and stay relevant in this? Number one, if I can change my little button here. Hang on one second. Present. Yes, and full screen. There we go. Those signals are already there. You have all of the opportunities to process them. Like, even though 65% of real world communication is nonverbal. Did you know that? One of the reasons I got into this space. Fascinating to me. Little types of tricks where if you look up and to the left, you're accessing the right side of your brain and you're working on creative functions. And if you do the opposite, you're likely recalling real information. There are tiny little signals all over the place that can tell you a ton of, not just about what someone says and the words coming out of their mouth, but whether or not they're comfortable, whether or not they're making up a story, whether or not they're accessing some factoid. Little tiny signals like finding 3 exclamation points in someone's text probably means that they're an extrovert. But those little signals are all surrounding you, and actually there is an entire world that is able to be mined. And the cool thing is the devices and the other things that we're utilizing all day are actually generating those signals incrementally and at near zero cost. But if you mix them and match them Ratatouille style, based on your existing function, your passion, again, graphic design, cool. Sales, cool. But get smart and actually put those into a data fabric where you're basically compiling those signals and those measures. I want you to know to get good at actually analyzing, storing, and understanding the data that is available to you in your role. You want to catalog it and be familiar with it. The next piece is you need to be able to understand what the case studies or KPIs associated with your role are and how they become useful, because you want to know, number one, what data do I have at my disposal, and what conversions that actually make me or my employer or whoever money are also available, because those are the things that you need to find connections between. If you have those, you basically have the building blocks of that science experiment. And this is a big point of the scale. Do I have the data? Do I understand the KPI and the outcomes that I am trying to deliver? Is it a click through? Is it a form submission? What are the different stages of the funnel that I have available to me? And what are even the micro conversions between those points? Did they fill out the form and not hit the button? Did they submit the form but not respond to the email? I want you to take those, combine the premises, and start predicting and testing. Now, the point here is that you're building a scientific method. This is all of the build your hypothesis, test your hypothesis that we all learned in grade school. If you can watch for the signals and the data streams that are around you, you can keep your eye open for ones that matter and do not matter and are interesting. You can test those with case studies and KPIs where you can build and structure your text and validate. This is a big deal. Validate whether or not they actually work. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. There's machine learning methods. There's companies like mine that do it like specifically in a boutique format. There's also a bunch of tools out there that all have little minor inclinations and indicators that they're using data to validate them. And I want you to run the opposite direction if you see a really cool thing that doesn't share that with you. Because they're probably either mining that data and not sharing it with you. When you guys build agents on ChatGPT and they don't actually share the feedback of how many people are using it, it's because you're building them a product, not you're building your own product. You need to be aware of that. That's one of those that I would actually kind of avoid. AI agents are really useful, really interesting. We build them and sell them. But if you go and build them with like large LLM and GPT providers and you're not privy to the feedback or the follow-up prompts that are coming with them, cool, you're wasting a bunch of your personal time. Yes, it's $20 a month. And yes, it costs them more than that to provide you the service. The reason they're actually doing that to provide you the service is because the data that you are giving them in prompting and revising your prompts, you're telling them, hey, here's what I was trying to get to. And that's what they're actually monetizing. You are the product in those cases. So if you want to flip the script, you actually need to start building a process. You need your data. You want proprietary data in the best case scenario, and you want a process that actually pushes it. So part of that process and that validation is oftentimes artificial intelligence. And just for clarification's sake, people say, well, yeah, it is. I know what it is. And I go, most people actually don't know what it is. And it's not even that complex, but it's just software that's designed to mimic human intelligence. That can be by using large scale methods or large scale processing. Some of them actually map and utilize the methods that the neurons in your brain follow. And we're going to cover 3 that I would suggest you really get familiar with today. One, again, the kind that can actually help you build and build up those meta measures. There's some that you can actually use and provide and recognize in the tools surrounding you all day, every day. And then again, there's the other ones that can actually build scientific prediction learning loops, again, like machine learning, that can ultimately become a really kind of cool organized data hub. I would argue if you have your data and you've got it in a system that'll actually allow you to build, reach, engage, act, convert, and then analyze that feedback loop to see if your hypothesis was correct. And you can do these really, really simply and really complexly. You can actually do this. So some people will say like, oh yeah, well, it's too complex. I can't do it. Fun little thing, little exercise. Go check in on this when you get time. This is some students that reverse engineered. They took all of Facebook's API open endpoints and basically went from different businesses and reverse engineered the database architecture of Facebook. Facebook has to deal with basically some of the more complex data structures you're ever going to deal with. They deal with people, they deal with events, they deal with relationships. And if you ever want to go, hey, can we do it? Or how did they pull that off? Or how could we even structure that? Or what type of data is it? And what does the process flow look like? This thing will upload and refine itself in a second. But you can see that it actually has fields and tools that you are contact, email, currency, political things, political views, wedding date, engagement date. They were basically building, they take your profile information in, they break it into a few different subgroups, profile, device. They put it into similar stores of truth, your user profile, your social graph, content stores, action, and event stores. Those are those conversions. And when they take those, they put them into algorithmic processing. So remember what we were talking about earlier. I'm like, there's like basically 4 steps. Organize and create those meta measures. Start to build your hypothesis. This is that algorithmic processing where they have their processes, different methods that they utilize to validate their predictions or test things. And then finally, the output and the meta measures. For the feedback loop is basically what they call targeting. But it's basically, well, here were the actions that actually mattered when we were trying to ultimately predict an outcome for detailed targeting on purchasing an item or something. Basically, the anonymized data fields, action games, other things that they liked, live events, etc., that they ultimately used and found value in generating what you guys see here and see as lookalike audiences, as their entire kind of algorithm factory, as this is called. So if you ever go, oh yeah, it's too complex, it's like, well, this is about as complex as it ever gets, and it's still ultimately kind of interpretable. If you have an hour in the future and you really want to go play through it, it's actually not as complex as you'd think. And it's like, it's still basically those 4 steps: data collection, storing that data, algorithmic processing, targeting. That's their feedback loop and outcome. So you can do it. Let me go back to this thing. Cool. And I tapped into the wrong button again. Bear with me for a second. Cool. So that was data structures and the overall flow. A little bit of the processing types and just those data types that I want you to be familiar with. Machine learning is one of them. It is an artificial intelligence methodology. And even though this isn't accurate for a data scientist, I want you to go, it is statistics on steroids. One of the reasons I say that, this is basically what's powering most of like your product recommendations on Amazon. It's powering your Netflix queue to basically say, hey, we can understand that you like watching movies with Tom Cruise or someone in them. And you also like watching other movies. I believe it was House of Cards. The series was actually generated using machine learning and understanding. We took a bunch of movies that people liked. We broke those into little pieces with meta measures that included the different actors and the different types of situations. Was it a drama series? And they actually put together the fact that, like, hey, people liked Kevin Spacey at the time. They liked drama, political series, and that was how House of Cards came to be. Machine learning is really, really cool and important because of that. It is one of the methods when you see it out in the field, if you will, where you can take your information, your proprietary data, your meta measures, you can put them into a system like this, and Memory Learner, it actually comes back and gives you kind of the recipe of what actually worked. This is kind of a screen grab and a dashboard from a lead scoring tool that we have that's for measuring machine learning and what actually works and does not. These little, we call them tornado charts, as they lean to the right. Those are the items that are more correlated with success and conversions. The more they lean to the left is the opposite. So it means that as you put all those tiny little measures in there, and like, I don't know if you can read this one, but at the top it says simulation as a persuasion angle, meaning, hey, when we actually utilized a demo in the process for our customers, it was actually one of the more useful items you do. And we have a bunch of different persuasion angles, like social proof and expert testimonials. This can actually tell us that, oh, by the way, demo is by far the most useful most of the time. So if you just had to pick or build one or focus on which one you should build, in our case, it's a demo. And that data means that we can actually work a lot less hard, work smarter, not harder, on developing content when it's like, just do a demo, figure out how to do personalized demos. Really, really, really useful. You can mix and match that same data. We took it for a client who wanted to basically understand lead generation quality. They had to buy from a bunch of different vendors, spend way into the 6 and 7 and 8 figures per year on those leads. And they wanted to say, can you basically help us understand which ones we can buy from, not just in a snapshot, but over time? And this is a dashboard that basically allowed them to start picking, well, what are you trying to do this week? Do you want more leads that are of quality? Do you need more conversions and starts? Or do you just need to actually make more use of your budget? We can tell you who to buy more of. The same vendors in both lists, but this is just a new one of those ratatouille flavors using the exact same data in a slightly different way and in aggregate. Deep learning, next little kind of methodology. Deep learning is using neural networks. This is the one that's actually trying to mimic the pattern of axons and neurons in your brain. You see the layers on the left. The challenge is you put in a bunch of data as the input layer. Your output layer is still the conversion that you're looking for. And the challenge on deep learning is it can do really, really cool computational things that are way beyond the scope of a human, way smarter. Also, so smart that we can't really interpret them. They actually become very difficult for us to understand. They go, it came to its conclusion, but there were so many decisions in the process that, unlike machine learning, we oftentimes can't explain it. So the good uses of if these find out, like AI cancer detection and image recognition, they can do things like predicting cancer better than doctors can. Simultaneously, they sometimes can't actually explain how they came to that conclusion, or at least they can't do it in a way that's easy for us to understand. You have to be careful with those because obviously they can come to some really cool kind of conclusions, but simultaneously come back with some really confusing ones. We'll come back to them in a bit. Generative AI, and this one is everybody loves their LLMs, their chat GPTs and everything else. And I also think they're one of the biggest, I don't want to say waste because I use them all the time as well, but people use them for the wrong reasons. Oftentimes where they're saying, hey, I had chat GPT generate a bunch of lead scores for me. And I go, don't do that. Don't do that. This is what your chat GPT is kind of doing behind the scenes. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. They read the entire internet. They logged every word, and then they logged all of the words that oftentimes come right next after that word. What was the highest frequency choice of the word that immediately followed is also and closely adapted to complex. It's basically taking the most popular content from the internet, creating kind of the equivalent of an average content. So if you ask it a question, its core job is to basically give you kind of the average answer. Now, good news for that is it actually means that you can generate a new answer from an amalgamation of content that oftentimes looks good, but it's usually the zig without the zag. It very often actually tells you kind of, again, here is an average answer. It doesn't tell you an insightful answer that people actually wouldn't have thought of unless they were told to specifically. And for that reason, when oftentimes people are going like, hey, I'm looking for lead scores and I just generated them using ChatGPT, I go, just so you know, it's just basically saying, hey, I went and I saw a lead score that included a handful of the words we had in our prompt, right? Oh, they were the director of marketing. Lead score is 8, not because they're actually an 8, but because 8 was the average answer from all of the content it read. Doesn't mean your contact is actually an 8. So when people do and use LLMs for a lot of reasoning-based tools, I go, just heads up, oftentimes it's wrong. Most of the time it's wrong. And most of the time it can't be backed up. We've had a ton of people and we've tried to use them. And we will use them to, like, say, recognize objects and images, and you can do some other fun stuff with them. They're really, really fantastic for summarization. They're not really good for logical and critical thinking things. They're getting better at it. They're not there yet, but this is where most of the money in the market gets wasted right now. So act accordingly. As it relates to basically helping you make better flavors and content. These are some of the examples of how you can actually take these few methods and put them into kind of different tools. This is one of ours. So like you can see, I have it pulled up here, but that's one of my profiles, right? This is Dan Baird, and using that same little meta measures technique of doing things like looking at the word choice that I use, whether or not I'm using exclamation points. It can basically give you a Myers-Briggs level personality recommendation that helps you understand who you are talking to. Based off the word choice that Dan uses, we can actually understand that, hey, he likes and prefers that you emphasize evidence such as case study, build and nurture your relationship, use proven concepts, which will be more compelling, speak honestly about the strengths and weaknesses. I'm a data-driven person. Anybody that knows me is going to go, yeah, that's Dan's style. We have 36 different ones of these, and I can basically run and generate this level of analysis on anybody that has about 25 words or more, and it just gets more accurate as you have more content from them. And all of the little insights underneath these are just more meta measures that we created just for funsies, using, again, some of the tools that we talked about today. But these become, this is basically using that same technique of I'm checking the word choice and I'm checking it against company copy that came directly from my organization. So I can plug in, well, here's the copy of reaching the right people in sales, like kind of like an A/B test from our company. and then measuring how much that overlaps with what Dan talks about, getting a score of 94. If I can mirror Dan's personality and mirror a lot of the communication style that he uses, or use products and projects that are familiar to him, he's more likely to listen to me. He's more likely to understand what I'm selling or what type of idea I'm trying to pitch to him. So you can use this to actually scale your personalization, not just to go through and say, hey, I generated a pitch and it was quote unquote personalized because I used their high school mascot, in the copy. This is how you can actually scale this scientifically and build data-driven messaging recommendations that actually work at scale, because you understand, all right, I've got a bunch of different options here. They're high for Dan because I work here, of course. But you can actually make sense. There's 100% overlap because that is me. That is my bio. We can use those to actually generate some pretty cool and interesting personalized content that's data-driven. So this is kind of one of the other methods you can do with other tools out there to accomplish the same kind of thing and proof that it works. So this is an email. If you wanted to take kind of and do the same thing that I was doing on the other screen, but not necessarily at the same scale, but as an intro scale. This is using Clay and using Instantly. You don't have to use Wrench if you don't want to. There's other tools for it. In this one, shout out to SaaSRise on this. These guys, good process-driven operators. They understand and employ a scientific method in deploying their marketing. But they basically use Clay to fill out and enrich LinkedIn profiles. They use that to generate 3 different variables for their emails: a subject line, customized basically by vertical, and then a customized PS line for each person. And they put into the prompt, hey, I'd like you to summarize something that actually makes it clear that I read their LinkedIn profile in the process, to personalize that message. And they actually came to some of the same KPIs, the outcomes that we did. Like, we were seeing 16+% positive click-through and response rates. They got 17. Again, it's one of these methods where we're going, hey, if we built a system, we measured that system, and we optimized that system, they basically found a scalable and replicable method of doing outbound email outreach using personalization by combining a handful of meta measures that they pulled in publicly available LinkedIn data. Very cool, not even that expensive. This is kind of what's next, and being able to use some of those new flavors and yeah. So some of the tools that are now coming out by being able, like, I'm on recordings like this, I present at conferences, I talk a lot on the phone. I can take that and turn this into, this is from a tool called HeyGen, where I can basically get a 2-minute script from myself, generate infinite kind of deep fake, if you want to call it that, but it is me and it's not a fake. But I can feed in a script and I can actually personalize each message that we're pushing out in new content and emails. Hey, this is a new feature release. This is how it's specific to you, Mr. Customer, but not Mr. Customer, Joe Smith, and your company, Popsicles Inc., and how it matters. This is where that generated copy and content script can actually be turned into customized messages. And yes, it's a little bit iffy. But to be honest, I sent this to 4 people in my company, and none of them could tell that they didn't actually even think it was a fake. So the technology and being able to get there, generative, this is some deep learning combined into video, is actually creating methods where you can go, I can create some really cool, again, scalable methods using completely, again, consistent variables that I track to do my personalization at scale, which dramatically increases the likelihood of customers, again, at scale. Other flavors that you can do with that data. So taking those, and if you build that list in that sheet that has the meta measures, has your contacts, even if it just has their LinkedIn profiles, you can combine those, and we build data-driven segments with them. So oftentimes there isn't a good way to actually do, if you did a totally customized message with 3 different variables for everybody in your database, you get into the millions of permutations very, very, very quickly. Different stages of the buyer's journey and stuff like that being involved, maybe 10 different emails in a properly drafted sequence for emails. Pretty quickly, you're going, wait, now we're up to 1 million variables, and next week, right? Doable, but next week. This is a way where we took and actually were able to say, well, if we actually started to take those meta measures and put them into kind of clusters, we use an AI technique for clustering. It's not that hard. We were able to build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 recurring personas that we could apply to different companies that did things that they usually can't do, like assign people a tag of an early adopter. Early adopters are usually more interested in features than they are in discounts. Late adopters want discounts. Knowing that actually can dramatically increase the likelihood. We've actually doubled and tripled people's cart sizes in e-commerce using that method by just making sure not only did we put everybody that converted into one bucket, we segmented them into early adopters and late adopters, and the early adopters were incentivized based on new features, new flavors of cookies at the time. And late adopters were incentivized by deals. Same different thing. This is just kind of like clustering and doing some analysis. You can see there's different lead scores associated with each group. So, I mean, one of the insights that was kind of interesting coming from those was just realizing that you can make a really good business from late adopters, early adopters, but they do want different messages. They absolutely are driven by different incentives. Other rich content. This is just kind of other fun stuff that you can do with the technology in general. If you make meta measures, or if you recognize, again, check them in your CRM, label data. You can have GPTs recognize and say, hey, this email that we sent out, log the call to action that we used. We used that type of technology and that method, plug that into content pipeline. We ultimately ended up building them, but you can get one yourself using machine learning with like off-the-shelf H2O AI is one example. SageMaker with AWS, you can plug in that data into machine learning models. And on the left, what we did here is we kind of mapped the number of use cases on the left, the number of flavors, if you will. And then on the right, we mapped which ones were actually associated with conversions. So you can see there's that little tornado style dividing line right there in the middle. The things to the right were correlated with success. The things on the left needed to be minimized to mitigate hurting conversions. Really kind of cool things is now we had a data set. We had a means to process and understand like what embedded inside of each of those pieces of content. Was it text? Was it words? Was it overlapping words that resonated with the audience? And able to build some other cool stuff. Let's see if I still have one pulled up. Am I logged into one right now? Do I have one? Here. Just an example on the fly. Build some tools that actually generate AI optimized creative, not guessing. Basically taking, hey, we found the elements that were tied to campaigns that literally worked. Convert those signals into things that actually become even more meaningful. And there you go. Built a little system that was able to recognize that content, recognize what worked, and then feed that data into a prompt so that when we generated new images, we could actually say, hey, we're going to generate things, but not just for the sake of generating them, but for, let's do CPM, number of analyzed models and stuff we created, but turned into a product, kind of nifty. Click through. And loading up some of the content that it creates. There's some of the jelly bean flavors, strengths and weaknesses from a specific ad, and how well it worked, what objects were embedded in it, and whether or not they were tied to correlation of success, and then fed those data points into another prompt that would generate new and optimized versions of those same ads, which we could then share with a client. Go, hey, what do you think? These are the ones that basically predicting the outcome of an A/B test before you actually do the A/B test. So we have the one above that you guys did. We have one potentially or different versions that you can optimize based on the recipient. Hey, if they live in San Diego and they work in the Navy, it's in that version. If they live in Phoenix, if they, et cetera, et cetera. Again, different correlations tied to different people and different recipients. Super fun stuff. So, but it all boils down to those same and simple 4 steps. It's like catalog and start to get used to the data that you have available to you. Put it into that kind of process where you understand, all right, how are we going to actually make sense of that data, log it, test our hypothesis with predictions, put those into the field, and then take your feedback and learnings without ego and actually rebuild the next one. So AI is a nifty tool. It's not a crutch. Don't lean on it too much. Yes, use it to help increase your productivity, but don't let it do its thinking for you, because a lot of it doesn't think, right? It is still software. Stay human, stay creative. The AI and a lot of that fun that's out, all of that cool stuff that's out there, and specifically when you're talking like marketing and personalization, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And in a lot of marketing and stuff like that, there will still be the need for new and creative approaches, because old stuff gets boring, which means you have to innovate just to stay relevant. That's actually really fun, and I'm super excited for that. Have fun with it. And then, if you have questions, want to chat, hit me up. Dan Baird at Wrench.ai. I would love to hear more from you. Thank you, Signals, for putting on this conference. You guys are awesome. We appreciate you. And if you guys have any questions, let's see if I have it on here. Yeah, hit me up. Dan Baird /Dan Baird on LinkedIn. Dan at Wrench.ai if you'd like to hit me up online. I look forward to hearing from you, and I appreciate you. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.